So here's an interesting one, guys. Here's a very interesting question for you that I don't have the answer to. I am sincerely presenting you with a question, but Ciryl versus Francis, who is the backup heavyweight? That's not been disclosed to us. I have to imagine there is one. When something is not disclosed to us, we automatically assume it doesn't exist. But I think that we would assume wrong. If you will go back to Madison Square Garden, Colby Covington versus Kamaru Usman, at the weigh-ins that morning appears Luque. None of us knew. Somehow they were able to keep it a secret. I would like to know, just from a reasoning standpoint, just share the logic with me because I'd like to learn things. I'm very curious. Teach me why. Teach me why those are secrets. I have to surmise that it's viewed as a distraction, and therefore you don't shine that guy up. You have him just in case. I don't agree with that. I think you get way more juice with the three-way, and I think it should be tested one time. One time we should throw that three-way in there. We should give the backup fighter a media tour. I really think that. I think the backup guy should get a media tour. He should be talking about the way he's training, the way he's preparing. The mindset that the backup guy would have to go through. Kamaru Usman, by example, the night he was agreeing to step in on 1 day's notice against Darren Till versus Tyron Woodley. That's fascinating to me because those two guys could not be any different. How did Kamaru Usman prepare for possibly a wrestler or possibly a kickboxer? It would just be interesting to me, right? This isn't going to set the world on fire, but it would add to Kamaru. It would add to the storyline. It would give him some shine. I don't believe it would be a distraction. That's my own opinion. I reserve the right to test this one time and stand back and tell you guys, had that one wrong. But that's what marketing is. Marketing 100% is throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. I mean, a lot of life is like that, but marketing, for sure, 2 + 2 is not 4. Ever in marketing. What works today might not work tomorrow. What worked tomorrow may have not worked 3 weeks ago. Doesn't mean it's a terrible idea. It could have been the wrong time. Bleeding edge, cutting edge. I mean, I can go on and on with the analogies. The point is, I just don't agree with it. I think that backup guy should get a lot of credit. I didn't love the idea that Luque stepped on the scale and that I had no idea that he was going to be there. I didn't feel like we underserved Luque. He just went through a training camp. He got on an airplane. He came to do the hardest thing there was to weigh in. Not to mention what he agreed to do would have been the most difficult thing that anybody could ever agree to do, at least within the confines of this sport, which is to take on a world title fight, a main event at MSG, 5 rounds, not knowing who your opponent is going to be on 1 day's notice. It's amazing. Luque deserved a whole bunch of credit for that. The same way as when Chandler agreed to do it, his reward is his next fight's for the world championship. The same way with Kamaru Usman, when he agreed to do it, his next fight, his reward was the actual world championship. I think this guy in the batter's box is one of the most fascinating things within the sport. I have to assume that we have some kind of a heavyweight there. So come along this journey with me. We're doing nothing more than speculating. And how the hell you keep a secret, I have no idea. You want to get a word out, you can telephone, telegraph, or tell a fighter. Fighter can't keep a goddamn secret, and neither can his team. Neither can the gym. Somebody wants to be the guy that knows and gets a hold of the Ariel Helwanis of the world. I mean, just by example, we don't ever hear anything for some reason. However these are presented to you, it's got to be presented to these athletes in a way of, hey, if the word gets out, the deal's off. It's got to be. There's no other way to get a guy to keep this a secret. I just don't think that it should be a secret. I think that it's a very celebrated thing. But in this particular case, aside from I went in 5 different directions there. Let's refocus here on Main Street. Who do you think it would be? Because heavyweight is very limited. Heavyweight is very limited. I mean, I feel as though I could sweeten this pot for you guys by telling you the reserve fighter is going to be Jon Jones. That would serve so many things for Jon that are positives. That would give Jon direction. That would give Jon a finish line. The one thing Jon doesn't have right now, he's managed to stay fairly motivated, and I can see the discipline just when I look at his body. I can tell he's working hard, but he hasn't hit a finish line. It's just a hard thing to do. I've been in that spot. We're in this weird purgatory. All right, when do I really need to be? I'm getting ready, but when do I really need to be ready? I mean, it just does something emotionally and psychologically to you that then gets more effort out of you in the room. So I think that it would be a real positive for Jon. You got him on an airplane, get him weighed in, it would get him licensed. There'd be some real positives there. And I also just think that that would really sweeten the spot. I think it would make this already incredible story even better. Somebody somewhere disagrees with me and thinks that it's a distraction. Okay, I can't prove I'm right. You can't prove you're right. This is a spot that we're in. But I bring Jon to you because if I wasn't going to bring Jon to you, I'd have to bring Stipe to you. And if I don't bring Stipe to you, who in the hell else is left? There's an answer to that. We had Volkov one time was a backup fighter. The first time I've ever seen a backup fighter. Never had even heard the term before. We're at a weigh-in, T-Mobile Arena, and Volkov walks out, gets on the scale. And I'm thumbing through my paperwork going, well, who in the hell's Volkov fighting? I don't remember seeing this. Well, it's something called a backup fighter. We'd never been told about it before. He was ready to step in and fill in and go from there. I want to say that was Daniel Cormier versus Stipe Miocic, if I remember right, but they brought in Volkov. I think I've got all of those details right. I for sure have the Volkov right. I was there and saw it with my own eyes. What I'm sharing for you is that would have been a pretty big step down. Volkov to fill in that spot would have been a body. The basic rule would be observed, which is the show must go on. But since Volkov, and I'm by no means insulting Volkov, but for Volkov to be in a title fight, would have been a bit of a surprise. Not the case at all when Kamaru sat in that spot. Not the case at all when Chandler sat in that spot. So not the case at all when Luque, 7-fight win streak, whole bunch of finishes in there, sat in that spot. So who would it be at heavyweight? Because heavyweight is always slim pickings. Through the history of time, it just is. We've got some good guys right now, but we have 4 absolute hammers. Our 2 champions, Ciryl and Gane. Jon Jones, who's never done it, isn't licensed, but we're going to throw him in there. Stipe, most successful heavyweight of all time. We've got 4 hammers. Is it Derrick Lewis? It would make some sense if it was. Derrick Lewis versus Gane is not anything that you guys want to see right now, but Derrick Lewis versus Francis absolutely is. For sure. And you'd watch Derrick versus Gane. It doesn't hurt things much, but for sure the other side of that against Derrick Lewis and Francis would be amazing. And if it's not Derrick, who is it? I'll tell you the guy that I would love to see get an opportunity and I can't seem to get my way is Curtis Blaydes. I think that Curtis is one of the more misunderstood guys. I don't know Curtis. I've never met him. Don't have his phone number. Never chatted with him on the phone. But I feel like I know him, and I feel like nobody's given him the right shake. Curtis Blaydes checks a whole bunch of boxes for me. He's young. He's handsome. He's skilled. He's getting better. He was a collegiate champion. I mean, I could go right on through the list. Not to mention he's got the courage that nobody else has. He fought Francis Ngannou, got knocked out, was pissed, demanded a rematch, flew to a different country just to get the rematch, got knocked out again, and went crazy and has demanded part 3. Like, Curtis Blaydes is everything that we want in a fighter, but for some reason, nobody wants to help him. Curtis is not going to be the backup fighter. I'm well aware of that. But what I'm attempting to demonstrate for you is it does fall off pretty hard. It's not Jon. It's not Jon Jones. That would be amazing. It's not, though. It's not Stipe. That would make all the sense in the world, but it's not Stipe. And then you go to Derrick Lewis, who I haven't spoke to, but I will speak for, and I know that I'm right. Know Derrick very well. Derrick would take that in a second. No problem. Not to mention he's coming off a win. Not to mention the opportunity to get in there with Ciryl. Derrick didn't like how that went. Derrick had some weird pressures on him that night. He was fighting at home. That is not an advantage in fighting. It is in every other sport. It is a disadvantage. Not to mention Derrick and Francis, or it's just oil and water. Those guys just can't get it right. It's like the police and the firemen. I mean, it's never going to go together. So if I was to predict for you, right, I'm asking you guys to give me a prediction. Leave a comment. I'm certainly going to go through them, but I'm going to also give you mine. I don't think we'll ever be told. I think that if we then assume because we're not told that there isn't one, I would remind you of the Luque example. This fight is just simply too big. There's too much at stake to not have that base covered. I'll give you my guess. I think it's Derrick Lewis.